Look at this guy, the koala, Australia's unofficial mascot, the undisputed champion of the animal tourism industry, and the face of countless childhood plush toys. If you were to walk out into the street right now and ask 100 random people what they think of when they see a koala, you would get a very predictable set of words. You would hear words like cute, cuddly, peaceful, adorable, and perfect. It is basically perceived as a living, breathing plush toy, right? The general consensus is that this creature just chills in a eucalyptus tree all day, munching on delicious leaves, watching the world go by, and living its absolute best, stress-free life. It seems like a utopian existence. Wrong. You have been lied to your entire life. Being born as a koala is arguably one of the most spectacular, mind-boggling evolutionary mistakes on planet Earth. Behind that fuzzy, photogenic exterior is a creature that is fundamentally, biologically broken. The koala is an animal trapped in a miserable existence, living a life of constant, grinding exhaustion, terrible food, horrifying bodily functions, and relentless disease. If Mother Nature had a customer service complaint department, the koala would be the very first one in line, demanding a complete refund on its existence. Welcome to the miserable, exhausting, completely absurd, and downright disgusting reality of why it absolutely sucks to be born as a koala. Let us start with the most important, fundamental requirement for any living organism on this planet: food. Most animals evolved to seek out and consume foods that are rich in calories, fats, vitamins, and proteins to sustain their energy and thrive. Predators hunt meat. Herbivores eat nutrient-dense grasses, fruits, or roots. The koala, however, took one look at the vast, diverse buffet of the Australian ecosystem and made the worst possible choice. It looked at the eucalyptus tree, a plant that is incredibly fibrous, possesses almost zero nutritional value, and is literally packed with toxic chemical compounds meant to deter animals from eating it, and said, "Yes, I will eat absolutely nothing but this." Eucalyptus leaves are a biological nightmare. They are loaded with highly toxic terpenes and phenolic compounds. The trees produce these toxins specifically so that animals will leave them alone. But the koala's evolutionary response was simply to power through the poison. To survive this idiotic dietary choice, the koala's liver has to work in absolute overdrive, constantly producing a massive amount of specialized enzymes just to break down the toxins and stop the animal from dying of acute poisoning every single day of its life. Processing this poison takes a monumental amount of metabolic effort. Because the leaves are so incredibly lacking in basic nutrition and the liver requires so much energy to filter the poison, the koala is left with a severe, permanent energy deficit. They have virtually zero usable energy. This is exactly why you see them sleeping for up to 20 to 22 hours a day. People think they are just lazy and having a nice, relaxing nap in the sun. They are not. They are essentially slipping into a localized, food-induced toxic coma, desperately trying to shut down their bodily functions to conserve the microscopic amount of energy they manage to extract from their terrible, poisonous diet just so their organs do not shut down. Because they eat toxic cardboard, they need a way to ferment it. Evolution gave them a cecum, an organ similar to our appendix, that is a staggering 2 meters long. That is over 6 feet of specialized intestine jammed into a creature the size of a small dog, functioning purely as a giant fermentation vat. But let us talk about how they actually get that food into their stomachs. Because the leaves are so incredibly tough, rigid, and fibrous, chewing them is a massive physical chore. A koala has to grind the leaves into a fine paste. But here is the cruelest joke evolution ever played on them: their teeth do not grow back. Unlike rodents, whose teeth continuously grow to compensate for wear and tear, a koala is stuck with one set of adult molars. As they spend their entire lives chewing nature's sandpaper, they slowly, inevitably grind their teeth down to the bare gums. Once their teeth wear out completely, they cannot process the eucalyptus. So, what happens to an older koala who has successfully survived predators, disease, and the harsh Australian elements? It simply starves to death in slow, agonizing pain because it can no longer chew its only food source. What a fantastically flawless biological design! Now, to survive on a diet of toxic zero-calorie cardboard, the body has to cut metabolic corners somewhere. For the koala, that corner was the central nervous system. Koalas have one of the smallest brain-to-body mass ratios of any mammal on the planet. Their brain makes up roughly 0.2% of their body weight. Their brains are lissencephalic, which means they are completely smooth. If you look at a human brain or a dog brain, you see lots of wrinkles and folds. Those wrinkles exist to increase the surface area for neurons, which allows animals to process complex information, think, and solve problems. Koalas do not have those wrinkles. Their brain looks like a smooth, pink chicken breast. Because of this, they are profoundly, shockingly stupid. Their survival instincts are basically a broken line of computer code. If you take fresh eucalyptus leaves off a branch and put them on a flat plate directly in front of a koala, the animal will not recognize it as food. It will literally sit there and starve to death while staring blankly at its own dinner.
Why?
Because its smooth brain is hardwired to only recognize food if it is actively attached to a branch. They lack the basic adaptability to understand that a leaf is still a leaf if it is on the ground. To protect this tiny, useless brain, you might think they have a normal skull. They do not. Their brain is so small that it only fills about 60% of their cranial cavity. The rest of the skull is just empty space filled with a massive, sloshing pool of cerebrospinal fluid. Their head is basically a biological crash helmet filled with water, designed specifically because they are so clumsy and exhausted that they constantly fall out of trees. They need a built-in shock absorber so they do not concuss their tiny, floating brains. Let us rewind for a second. Maybe you are thinking that at least the start of a koala's life is nice and peaceful? Not even close. Koalas are marsupials, meaning they are born incredibly underdeveloped after a gestation period of only about 30 to 35 days. A newborn koala, called a joey, is completely blind, hairless, deaf, and roughly the size of a single pink jelly bean. Immediately upon birth, this tiny, fragile jelly bean has to use its underdeveloped nubs of arms to blindly drag itself through its mother's thick fur to find her pouch and attach to a teat. It stays in the pouch for about 6 months, which sounds cozy, until it is time to start eating solid food. This presents a massive, life-threatening problem. Remember how eucalyptus is highly toxic. A baby koala is born completely sterile. It does not have any of that required gut bacteria. If it eats a eucalyptus leaf, it will die. So, how does the joey get the bacteria it needs to survive? By eating its mother's poop. I am not exaggerating for comedic effect. This is a scientific fact. For several weeks, the mother koala produces a specialized, semi-liquid form of feces from her backside called pap. This pap is essentially a highly concentrated, biologically active smoothie of fermented gut bacteria and digested poison. The baby koala must stick its head out of the pouch, press its face against its mother's rear end, and consume this liquid feces directly from the source. It must do this repeatedly for days just so it can inoculate its own digestive tract and eventually graduate to eating the toxic, zero-calorie leaves. Coprophagia, the act of eating feces, is a mandatory, non-negotiable rite of passage for every single koala on Earth. Their childhood trauma is wrapped in a horrifying biological necessity. And if gravity or dogs do not get them, disease absolutely will. This is perhaps the darkest part of the koala's existence. Wild koala populations are absolutely ravaged by chlamydia. This is not just a minor inconvenience, it is a full-blown, unstoppable epidemic. In some populations, infection rates are as high as 90 to 100%. The koala version of chlamydia causes severe conjunctivitis that leads to permanent blindness, massive respiratory infections, and debilitating urinary tract infections. It causes a condition known colloquially as wet bottom, where the animal constantly leaks urine, causing its fur to rot and its skin to burn in agony. It also causes severe cysts in the reproductive organs, rendering a massive portion of the female population completely infertile. And as if a massive chlamydia epidemic was not enough, they are also dealing with something called the koala retrovirus. This virus is actually inserting itself into the koala's permanent genome. It acts similarly to HIV in humans, systematically destroying the koala's immune system and making them incredibly susceptible to cancers, particularly leukemia, and making it impossible for them to fight off the chlamydia. They are literally rotting from the inside out while sitting in a tree eating poison. So, let us recap this biological masterpiece. The next time you see a beautifully edited tourist video of a cute, fluffy koala hugging a branch in the sunshine, I want you to remember what you are actually looking at. You are looking at a creature completely trapped in a hopeless evolutionary dead end. You are looking at an animal that survives exclusively on a diet of harsh poison, powers a perfectly smooth, useless brain on 0 calories, sleeps all day in a toxic coma, starts its life by literally eating liquid feces out of its mother's backside, grinds its own teeth down until it starves, and is currently suffering from both rampant chlamydia and an immune-destroying retrovirus. Mother Nature works in mysterious, complex ways. But when it came time to design the koala, it seems abundantly clear that she just got completely drunk, threw a bunch of leftover biological parts into a blender, and walked away laughing. Being a koala is not a cute, peaceful life. It is an exhausting, disgusting, tragic slog against the very forces of nature itself. Thanks for watching this miserable deep dive. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know down in the comments which animal we should completely ruin for you next. See ya!